Hamas calls for implementing the second phase of Gaza's ceasefire agreement. Israel approves the U.S. truce proposal while Hamas rejects it. And Egypt calls for a true stabilization and reconstruction plan ahead of the Arab League summit. It's 10 a.m. Cairo local time, and you're watching Qnews. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. Hamas has called for the implementation of the second phase of the ceasefire agreement with Israel, which began on January 19th. Hamas criticized the American proposal for a truce until mid-April, which was approved by Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, viewing it as evidence that Israel is backing out of its commitments. Hamas emphasized that the only way to achieve regional stability and the release of detainees is through completing the agreement, which includes permanent ceasefire negotiations, full withdrawal, reconstruction, and detainee release. The Israeli Prime Minister's office has confirmed its approval of the U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff's proposal for a temporary truce in Gaza during Ramadan. The proposal includes releasing half of the living and deceased detainees on the first day. However, Hamas continues to reject it. That comes as Israel reserves the right to resume fighting if negotiations are deemed deceptive. Additionally, reports indicate that Israel has decided not to resume the war in Gaza in the coming days, allowing space for negotiations.
And that's what we're here to do, and that's what the president has tasked us with.
And we're looking to a number of our allies, partners in the region.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has announced the signing of a declaration to expedite $4 billion in military aid to Israel. According to support Israel's security. The U.S. State Department also approved a potential sale of bombs, explosives, and other weapons worth $3 billion to Israel. These sales were fast-tracked without the usual congressional review process. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced an immediate halt to the entry of goods and humanitarian aid into Gaza effective today. According to Israeli media reports, the Israeli army has been instructed to shut down all border crossings into the enclave. Additionally, the Israeli government has approved the possible call-up of 400,000 reserve soldiers, a move coordinated with the United States. This development signals a potential escalation in the conflict, raising concerns over the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Later, Hamas has condemned Netanyahu's decision to halt humanitarian aid, calling it cheap blackmail, a war crime, and a clear violation of the ceasefire agreement. Hamas also calls on the U.S. to cease supporting Netanyahu's plans.
נוספת נגד מוקדי טרור. בשנה האחרונה אנחנו מאוד הגברנו את הפעילות שלנו. אנחנו נכנסים למעוזי הטרור.
Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has reaffirmed Egypt's unwavering support for the Palestinian people and their legitimate rights, particularly the right to self-determination. During a meeting with Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa, Madbouli announced that the Egyptian government has developed a comprehensive plan to rebuild Gaza while ensuring that Palestinians remain in the enclave. He emphasized that Egypt is making every possible effort to support the Palestinian cause and facilitate relief efforts for war-affected civilians in Gaza. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdel-Ati has called for stabilizing the current truce in Gaza as a step forward towards a permanent ceasefire, stressing the urgency of ending the humanitarian crisis affecting millions in the enclave. Speaking at a joint press conference with Palestinian Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Mohammed Mustafa, Abdel-Ati confirmed that Egypt's Gaza reconstruction plan will be presented to Arab foreign ministers on Monday, ahead of its official submission to the Arab League summit on Tuesday. Egypt has been actively engaged in diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the conflict, facilitate humanitarian aid, and push for a political resolution to the crisis. King Abdullah II of Jordan has stressed the importance of rebuilding Gaza without displacing its people and ensuring a stable ceasefire. In a phone call with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the two leaders discussed regional developments and global efforts to resolve the crisis. Jordan's king emphasized intensified international humanitarian efforts and warned against rising tensions in the West Bank, urging meaningful political action for a just, comprehensive peace. And now we move to Riham Morsi in our newsroom.
Thank you, Selma. Now for the economic news. Argentine President Javier Milei delivered a high-stakes address to lawmakers outlining his administration's aggressive economic strategy, which includes strict fiscal austerity, a potential trade deal with the United States, and possible departure from Mercosur. Addressing Congress amid applause and protest outside, Milei declared that fiscal balance must be mandatory for all levels of government, stressing the need for deep spending cuts. The Libertarian leader also signaled a major foreign policy shift, reviving talks of a U.S.-Argentina trade agreement, an opportunity he claimed Argentina had wasted 2 decades ago. Milei also revealed ongoing talks with International Monetary Fund, IMF, to stabilize Argentina's central bank and eliminate foreign exchange controls by the end of the year.
El primer paso en este sendero es la oportunidad histórica que tenemos para entablar un acuerdo comercial con Estados Unidos. Una oportunidad que ya se nos
Final data from the Statistics Office has reported that Sweden's economy grew 0.8% in the fourth quarter of 2024, up from the previous quarter, and expanded a 2.4% year-on-year. Full-year growth reached 1%, exceeding earlier estimates. Strong exports, business investment, and household spending drove the recovery through consumer confidence remaining low. The central bank, which has cut rates 6 times since last spring, signaled that rates may have bottomed out at 2.25%. Despite the uptick, uncertainty persists due to weak retail sales, geopolitical risks, and rising inflation, which could delay further rate cuts. Official data has shown that Turkey's economy grew 3% year-on-year on the fourth quarter of 2024, bringing full-year growth to 3.2%, exceeding forecasts despite high interest rates. The government had initially projected 3.5% growth, but revised expectations due to efforts to curb inflation, which peaked at over 75% in May and now stands at just above 40%. Finance Minister Mehmet Simsek credited balanced growth to domestic demand at 2.1 points and net foreign demand at 1.1 points. Statistics Canada has reported that the country's economy expanded by 2.6% on an annualized basis in the fourth quarter, surpassing forecasts of 1.8%. It noted that this expansion is driven by strong consumer spending, business investment, and exports. Statistics Canada also revised the third quarter growth to 2.2%, up from 1%. Monthly gross domestic product rose 0.2% in December, reversing November's contraction, supported by retail sales growth and a sales tax break. An advanced estimate suggests 0.3% growth in January. Data released by Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry has revealed that Japanese retail sales grew by 3.9% year-on-year in January, falling slightly below market expectations of 4%. This marks a slowdown compared to the revised 3.5% growth in December, which was initially reported at 3.7%. On a monthly basis, retail sales increased by 0.4% in January, recovering from a 0.8% contraction in December, revised from an earlier estimate of negative 0.7%. The figures indicate a modest rebound in consumer activity but highlight ongoing challenges in meeting market forecasts. Taking center stage. The technology showcase officially runs from March 3rd to the 6th, but major brands like Honor and Xiaomi are set to unveil their latest products on the sidelines of the event starting Sunday, March 2nd. Organizers from the GSMA announced that the 2025 edition is already sold out, with expectations of 101,000 attendees throughout the week and an estimated economic impact of €500 million for Barcelona. The GSMA, which represents more than 750 mobile operators worldwide, is the organizing body behind MWC, one of the world's largest and most influential tech events. U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered a new trade investigation that could lead to additional tariffs on imported lumber, adding that the existing duties on Canada's softwood lumber and the upcoming 25% tariffs on all Canadian and Mexican goods set to take effect next week. In his third tariff probe in a week, Trump signed a memorandum directing Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to launch a national security investigation into U.S. lumber imports under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, the same trade law he previously used to impose global tariffs on steel and aluminium. The investigation also covers derivative products made from lumber, which could impact furniture items such as kitchen cabinets, including those made from the U.S. lumber that had been exported and reprocessed abroad.
I'd say over the next sometime, or maybe around April 2nd. I would have done them on April 1st. Believe it or not.
Chinese AI startup DeepSeek has disclosed financial details related to its popular V3 and R1 models, claiming a theoretical cost-profit ratio of up to 554% per day. However, the company cautioned that actual revenue figures would be significantly lower. This is the first time the Hangzhou-based company has shared insights into its profit margins from AI interference tasks, the computational stage, where trained AI models perform real-world functions such as a chatbot interaction and predictions. The revelation could further rattle AI stocks outside China that plunged in January after web and app chatbots powered by the R1 and V3 models surged in popularity worldwide. Now, for more news and updates from around the world, we go back to Selma in our studio.
Russia announced that its forces had seized control of 2 more settlements in Ukraine's Donetsk region, while Ukraine reported intense battles and claimed to have repelled Russian attacks in multiple directions over the past 24 hours. According to Russia's defense ministry, its forces continued to push back Ukrainian counterattacks and launched new offensives across several fronts, including Kharkiv in the northeast, Donetsk in the east, and Zaporizhia in the southeast, and Kherson in the south. The ministry also reported strikes on Ukrainian military airports, drone storage facilities, and 136 military targets. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba expressed surprise over the exchange between U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky during a high-stakes meeting in the Oval Office. Speaking to reporters, Ishiba emphasized that diplomacy should not be driven by emotion, but rather by compassion and patience in the pursuit of peace. Zelensky had viewed the meeting as a crucial opportunity to solidify U.S. support against Russian President Vladimir Putin, who ordered the military incursion into Ukraine 3 years ago. However, the talks took an unexpected turn. Instead of reaffirming support, President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance criticized Zelensky, accusing him of showing disrespect. A massive fire tore through a village in Malaysia's Sabah state, destroying homes and affecting 669 people, according to local authorities. Drone footage captured by an eyewitness showed a thick smoke billowing as flames engulfed the area. The morning blaze burned through an estimated 250 square meters, forcing residents to flee. Authorities confirmed that no casualties were reported, and firefighters managed to bring the fire under control. An investigation is now underway to determine the cause of the fire. A tragic bus crash in Bolivia's Potosi region has left at least 37 people dead and dozens injured, according to police and local authorities. The accident took place on the route between Uyuni and Colchani when one of the buses swerved into oncoming traffic, resulting in a fatal collision. Authorities are now working to identify the victims and provide medical care to the injured, who have been rushed to nearby hospitals. Yamando Orsi was sworn in as Uruguay's new president, marking a shift towards the center-left after narrowly defeating the ruling center-right coalition in November's election. The 57-year-old former mayor, backed by leftist ex-president Jose Mujica, has pledged to implement a modern left agenda, balancing social welfare and economic growth. Speaking to a crowd at Independence Square, Orsi declared a future and a challenge await us as supporters cheered. During the windy outdoor ceremony, outgoing President Lucy Lacella formally handed over the presidential sash, embracing Orsi in a moment of political transition. More than 100 protesters gathered at the Yosemite National Park Visitor Center in California to voice their outrage over staff cuts at national parks and forests under the Trump administration. The demonstration was part of the nationwide Protect Your Parks protest, which saw rallies across the country. During the event, recently terminated park employees and members of the public delivered short speeches, while protesters marched nearby, holding signs and chanting slogans, some directed at Elon Musk. As a biological science technician, he specialized in studying the fisher, an endangered muskrat species native to the park. In central China's Hubei province, a meticulously recreated version of Chang'an, the ancient capital of the Tang dynasty, is attracting growing numbers of visitors. The Changyang Shengxi Tang City Spot, also known as the Tang City Film Base, has served as the backdrop for numerous renowned domestic and international films and TV dramas, including the hit production The Legend of the Demon Cat. Designed to faithfully replicate the architecture and street layout of the Tang-era capital, the site offers visitors a glimpse into the grandeur of one of China's most prosperous and influential historical periods. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here's what we've been covering. Hamas calls for implementing the second phase of Gaza ceasefire agreement. Israel approves the U.S. truce proposal while Hamas rejects it. And Egypt calls for a true stabilization and reconstruction plan ahead of the Arab League summit. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EG to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.